Now broadcasting the Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show, positioning your business with strategies for an extraordinary future. Dr. Nilda features expert guests from diverse backgrounds to bring you their stories and strategies that have helped them reach their success. The diversity in industries gives you that panoramic view from an array of industries. They are innovators, thought leaders, trendsetters, and strategists. Here, Dr. Nilda reveals strategies that will position you to be on the cutting edge and be able to do what you love with the people you like, making the profits you want to live the lifestyle that you have dreamed of. And now, here's your host, Dr. Nilda Perez.
Hello, and welcome to another Dr. Nilda Business Foresight Show. Today I have with me Dr. Jerome Glenn. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Jerome Glenn. Dr. Jerome Glenn is the CEO of the Millennium Project, a leading global participatory think tank. He's been there since 1996. Now there's 63 nodes around the world. He is the lead author of the State of the Future reports for the past 20 years. He's also the co-editor of its Futures Research Methodology 3.0 and designed and manages the online Global Futures Intelligence System. He invented the Futures Wheel and concepts such as conscious technology, self-actualization, economy, and the definitions of environmental security and collective intelligence. The Futures Wheel is a method for graphical visualization and direct and indirect future consequences of a particular change or development. Dr. Jerome is the author of the book Future Mind about information warfare in the 1980s. He sent his first email in 1973, and in the mid-1980s, he was instrumental in getting the X.25 packet switching in 29 developing countries for low-cost internet access. His future work in tech 2050 global scenarios are currently being used nationally, also in 18 countries. He's been instrumental in naming the first space shuttle, the Enterprise. Welcome, Dr. Jerome. How are you?
Good, thank you. Nice to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. So you've done a lot of really amazing things, and I want to start with the Millennium Project. Please tell me a little bit about what you're working on now. First, what it is, and then what you're working on now.
Right, okay. The Millennium Project is a think tank. It's a little different than most think tanks in that there's no single place of it. There's 63 nodes around the world, and these nodes are groups of individuals and institutions who identify the best minds we can get our hands on to answer questions about future possibilities. And so it's a input-output device, these nodes around the world. So it's a global participatory system, essentially, for humans to think together in an organized way about the future.
Fabulous. So tell me a little bit about think tanks. I've always been very fascinated about think tanks. So tell me a little bit about what a think tank is, and then what is a global think tank?
Okay.
I know that they have, I know that in Washington, D.C., they have think tanks that come together but tell me what this is about.
Right. The first think tank was the Rand Corporation, as far as we know. You could say that there were leisurely priestly castes several thousand years ago in Egypt giving the vizier, the advice and so forth. But in the sense where we use the word think tank today, Rand was the first one. Its job was to figure out how to prevent World War III. Whether it did or not, I don't know, but at least the mission was accomplished. The idea was to bring the best minds they could get their hands on, put them in one place, and then think about horrible things, and then how to prevent those horrible things. Now, think tank, and then there's another one in Futuribla in Paris, and some other ones came after that. A distinction to be made, most people don't really have think tanks in the old sense. The old sense was to think about the future. Most think tanks like Brookings and Hudson's a little bit of a futurist one, but most of the think tanks today are policy analysis places. What is a tax cut going to do? What is the relationships right now with Korea? They're analyzing current political stuff. Whereas original think tanks were to think about the far out stuff. So they were future think tanks. But now you've got think tanks on everything from scratching your nose to scratching your elbow, A lot of them. It's become popular.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you
But
think,
there's
you read, you write, you think, you discuss. It's just all this stuff to analyze stuff is what most of them are doing today.
okay. But Futures Think Tank is actually analyzing the future, looking to the
Right,
future, and developing scenarios
right,
for the potential future.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Would you say that this is something that's really necessary? Think tanks are very necessary to be able to analyze that future. It,
Well, if society slowed down to a crawl, you wouldn't need them because there wouldn't be much change, right? It's
yes.
like imagine a car at nighttime. If your car driving 5 miles an hour and your headlights are not very strong, no problem. But if you start going 60 miles an hour and your headlights are still weak, you're going to crash.
Right.
So as society changes more rapidly, it's important to look out more farther into the future to give you more time to figure out what to do so you get the best and avoid the worst.
Okay. Fantastic. So what are some simple methods that you use to help entrepreneurs anticipate the future of
Right,
their business or anticipate, their
right,
future?
right. The first one that every futurist does, and to some degree every person does to some degree, but not necessarily organized, what we call scanning, environmental scanning, horizon scanning. It's like the old sailing ship many years ago that when you're going into uncharted territory, somebody had to get up on the top, get up there and look around and say, Captain, there's a rock over there, move over there. So that's the basic idea. You're keeping track of internet changes and, keywords and all that, like what's changing, what's staying the same, what's changing the same way. That's scanning. You're keeping track of what the key issues are coming up. That's one. But then you have to understand the concepts or the trends. And one way we do that is a futures wheel. You take this is something you can do on your desk. Anybody can do this. Take a piece of paper, write down whatever trend or new event or thing like that in a piece of paper, put a circle around it, then say, okay, if that happens, what else would happen? So you draw little lines out like spokes of a wheel. And at the end of these little spokes, you say, well, what might happen? If we have artificial intelligence, we might have some job implications or whatever. So you have all these little implications around the center. Then you take that first ring of primary consequences that most people understand, and then
Right.
say, okay, for each one of these, what are the secondary consequences? And then when you finish that, then what are the tertiary consequences of each of the secondary ones? So the futures wheel sort of like spreads out like a pebble you throw a pebble in a stream or a pond, it ripples, comes out. Well, life is like that too. So the futures wheel helps you organize information in terms of secondary and tertiary consequences. And that's usually what gives people a problem, because they say they're blindsided by their business. This new thing happened. And oh my God, now I got a mess on my hands. If I had only seen that ahead of time. Well, that's the purpose of futures wheel. It helps you look around the system a little more broadly.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I love that. So, I know that futuring is something that us futurists, we're definitely very well aware. How does a traditional small business, because I know
Sure.
that oftentimes you work with the larger companies,
Mhm.
but I find that small companies have such a potential for growth.
Sure. Well,
And
what they can do is every small business knows what are potential problems coming up, whether it's supply cost or whatever it happens to be, or somebody's going to be leaving next month, whatever it is, you call that an event. All right, it has a beginning and end. The person leaves, the person's going to leave the company in 3 months or something. All right, so you take the little piece of paper out and you say, okay, Joe leaves the company in 6 months. What else will happen? Well, I got to go find somebody. What are all those little things that come out from that? And then you just go through the whole process. So whatever uncertainty you have, do a futures wheel around it to help you get more certain or more clarity about what's possible.
okay, do
And
you?
then if you want to get fancy,
Uh-huh.
then you can
Let's
write a
do
little
that.
story. Joe leaves in 6 months and then this happened. So you write a story. And one of the purposes of writing the story or a scenario is to find out what you didn't know. So, any writer will tell you when you write a story, at some point you go, I have no idea what's going to happen next. That's good, because when you don't know something that was important, then you can start to think about, well, what do I do about that unknown?
Right, right. Do you believe that people would be able to hire better and do a better job with the hiring if they had this information?
Well, you've heard the expression, it's better to think ahead than not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, blindsided meaning you didn't think ahead, you didn't look around. So yeah, this is how our brain is structured. This, you know, if you're always thinking if thens all the time. Well, if I go down this street, I'm going to run into this traffic jam problem, so I better go over here. But if I go over here, I'll run into Sam, and I want to see Sam. So there's a third. You know, this is the way that our brains think.
Mm-hmm.
Futures just give you organized structures for what you're doing anyway, a little bit.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of kids that are going to school, and yet there are a lot of jobs that are not going to be there in a very short while, because things are changing so quickly. Then there's the artificial intelligence and all of this. So how do you look at the future of businesses and the future of work?
All right.
A twofold question.
Right. Well, if you have a process in your business, from market research to evaluation of sales or whatever process you have, you can put it on a piece of paper. Blah 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 blah. This is how the process of our business works. Then say, okay, now can any of this be automated more efficiently? Yes or no? If yes, how might it be automated? And then then you can contract some software firms to say, can you give me some AI to do that, so that your whole business grows with artificial intelligence so you're, in a sense, you're surfing the wave rather than having the wave, wipe you out.
Right.
Now, that's for business. With employment is the other side of the coin, right? Because if you're figuring out how to automate functions out of your process, then Joe could get fired next year. So what does Joe do? What Joe should do now is start to say, what are my hobbies? What do I like to do? What turns me on? And then how do I find markets for that around the world? And then how do I connect up with that? And you will eventually make a living out of self-actualization, not right off the bat, but you begin. All right. It's just like the industrial age didn't happen just with a steam engine. There was a whole lot of stuff that had to happen. So
Right.
as we move into this post-information age, post-communications era, and into a self-actualization, it'll take some while too. But what will make it successful for Joe or the other people coming up unemployed is, how do I make a living out of being myself? I mean, yes, we figure by 2050, you still have 1 billion people employed around the world. All right. So it's not going to hit everybody. But if the workforce in 2050 is 6 billion, that means 1 out of 6 people is not employed in the usual way. Right? So people may still have regular jobs. That's true. But the growth of employment will be self-employment. So the way you start now is, how do I make a living out of some of my hobbies?
Right.
Like, let's say that you are somebody who likes to design unique hoop earrings, and you've got a friend down the street who's got this hobby on making sensors. So you have telephone earrings. You could be the first person selling telephone earrings.
I
You're
love
walking
it.
down the street, and you don't have this stuff in your pocketbook. So, but you start with, like, what are my hobbies? What's turning me on? And how do I, who in the world's interested in this stuff? Well, you can start a website. Who's interested in scratching my nose or whatever it happens to be? And people start to come in. Half the world now is on internet.
Right.
All right. That means every person in internet is surrounded by half the world. Now, we don't know how to get to half the world because we don't think that way. But start to think, how do I find half the world is like 4 billion people or so, more or less, a little less than that.
Right.
That's a lot of people.
Right.
You only need like 0.0000001% of all that to get quite rich.
Exactly. Exactly. And
So that's what I would suggest to Joe. Keep doing your job. You're not leaving it yet. Don't leave your day job, but figure out how you make a living on what you're interested in doing. Because if we have a civilization where more and more people are actually making a living out of being themselves, honesty should go up, bullshit should go down, human relationships should improve. I mean, how many people are unhappy today because of their boss, their job, their partners, their commute, whatever the hell it happens to be. There's something
Right.
they're pissed off about. You know,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
we could actually make this transition. We could. It was impossible before. You had no choice but to go down the street for a job. You know, you didn't. You had no choice. You had to do it this way. And if there's only 5 different kinds of occupations, then that's what you fit into. So you went to school to learn how to fit in. And we're still now having education systems learning how to fit in. Well, you
Exactly.
now got to learn, you've got to change the education system. How do I know who I am? Those
Right.
people never, you know, they born, they work, they die. They never found out who they were.
Exactly, exactly. I have a client in the food service who was telling me all of the problems in food service. It's like, these are the issues. And I was like, that's fantastic. And he was like, no, that's not fantastic. This is horrible. These are the problems. And I said, now we need to work on the solutions.
That's right.
That's it. Now
Yeah,
that we found
business
the
is a
problem.
problem-solving technique. People forget that. Business is a problem-solving technique.
Exactly. And he who finds the solution,
Profits,
just
as
profits.
they should.
So, and I was like, this is fantastic. That's it. You've pegged it. You found all of the problems. And so now we need to find solutions. And in the beginning, he was like lost, like, this is good. I'm like, this is wonderful.
Yeah, that's right.
When you think futures, you think how this is it. Now that we found this problem, how are we going to solve it?
Right.
So this is excellent. I love this because this really applies to everyone. And you'll also become an asset to your job.
Yep.
If you think this way. If it's that you
and
don't
you're
want
also an asset to your family because you're doing something that you want to do. Somebody did a PhD dissertation on what the heck it was, happiness or humor or something. But the idea is doing what you're good at makes you happy.
exactly. It's not only doing what you're good at, but enjoying what you do. And you enjoy what you do when you're good at what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. And so, for those people that, have this trepidation of starting their own business, well, then don't start your own business, but become an asset
Right.
to your job.
But what I'm also saying to people is, even if you don't want to start your own business, relax. Explore your hobby. You're not starting your business yet. You're just warming up. This is like the little leagues, the little early stuff. So just do the hobby. Mess around for 4 or 5 years. That will grow. So that if you do get automated out of a job, you have a soft landing.
Exactly. I love that. It's great. Great. So I want to talk a little bit about the pack switching. I want you to explain that to the audience. What is that, and how does that really apply to all of us?
Right. Yeah, packet switching was actually a French invention that they sold the patent to the United States. Not smart. You license, you don't sell patents. Anyway, they did that. So what packet switching is when in the old days, when you have your computer connected to a telephone, all this data would go out of your computer and it would go to the telephone authority, and then it would be switched up to a satellite. Now, if you just did it that way, if you're on your computer for an hour, you're charged for an hour of satellite time, which is a fortune. All right.
Right.
So what packet switching does is, as the stuff goes down, gets into the telephone company, it takes it from you, makes a package, makes another package, makes another package, makes another package. So it's like turning a river into little BBs, so to speak. All right. So, and then the little BBs are then sent up to satellite and then transferred to wherever it's supposed to go, which means that if you're on a computer for an hour or a day, the actual satellite time may be just a few seconds. Well, that's very cheap. And that's why internet became so inexpensive worldwide, because of packet switching.
Okay, fantastic. So with the Millennium Project, these are some of the things that you do in the Millennium Project?
Well, no, we did the packet switching back in the early 80s.
Oh, okay.
Because that was done deal. Now everybody enjoys it. They don't even know how it happened.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay.
What we do now, for example, one we're exploring right now is to create a state of the future index for gender justice. If gender justice is better in 10 years, what does that mean specifically? And how do we measure that? Another one we're working on is taking those issues about the future of work and technology and doing workshops around the world. Another one I got a meeting on in a couple of days, is future of governance. How do we move the future of governance into a better way? Like we got artificial intelligence coming up. How do we govern that?
Okay.
All right. Now, if the United States does everything great and another country doesn't, we get affected by it. So we have to create some global governance systems.
Okay.
How do we do that? And that's one of the things we're working on now.
Okay, fantastic. Fascinating, fascinating projects. What is a good source of future possibilities? What do you see as the future?
Right.
What are the
Well, we
possibilities?
produce over the last 20 years reports called the State of the Future reports.
Right.
The one that's just come out that your readers can download PDFs, cost them less money, is the State of the Future 19.1. So if they do a Google search on State of the Future 19.1, they can find out, or they can go to our website, which is Millennium with 2 L's and 2 N's, Millennium, hyphen, not underline, but hyphen project.org. It'll have a bunch of sources. It'll State of the Future there. It'll have the methodologies, methods I talked about, and a bunch of other stuff. So that's a sort of a window to a whole lot of, there's more stuff there than you're going to be able to absorb for a while. But we've worked hard to make it clear and simple. You can also download the executive summary of the State of the Future at no charge. So that's a good thing to start with. Just click on where it says English, if that's your language, and then download that and read. And if you want more, then you can come back to the website.
Okay, okay, fantastic. So basically what you do, Dr. Jerome, is that you just research and you look at different areas, different industries in business globally, and how they impact the future and how we can make that change. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
Yes, and I also travel a lot around the world. So I'm interacting with people of different orientations. So it helps me not be so US centric.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so, and you're also seeing it from different perspectives.
Right.
Okay, so when you travel around the world, what you're doing is you're gathering data, or you're
Well, both. Somebody will say, give a speech somewhere. So that gets me there. And then we have these nodes around the world. So then they'll set up other meetings and other activities. So we're using the public speakers circuit to cut our travel costs.
Okay, okay, fantastic. Okay, so where do you see the future? Where do you see the future of, mostly what I have, my audience is mostly business people. What do you suggest? If you could give them one suggestion, what would that be?
Okay, well, first of all, one suggestion isn't what I should do, because the
Oh,
future is complex. It's like, is your heart better than your mind, than your brain? Which prioritize between the two of them. You can't do that. But so I'll dribble on quickly about a couple of things. One, biology is going to be a bigger deal than people realize. Synthetic biology is not genetic engineering. Genetic engineering, you take a little DNA, you knock something out, you put something in, and it's still a rose. It just happens to be a rose that glows, all right?
okay.
Synthetic biology is you're taking different kinds of genetic materials or molecular structures from completely different species and creating new things. Think of all the things that nature can do that you can't do. Then imagine creating products out of all of that. That's going to be giant. So the biological revolution may be as big as the industrial revolution coming up. So anything related to that should grow.
Okay.
Another is, how do you help the transition to the self-actualizing economy? There's going to be a whole lot of retraining, all kinds of activities. Like imagine you're doing the transition from the agricultural age to the industrial age. What had to happen? That's all kinds of business opportunities. So it's the same thing between the information economy, the self-actualization economy. What are all the things that have to be done? And how do you fit into all that?
Exactly.
What in there that interests you?
Okay. Okay. And that's how you create your own job.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, like, for example, I like talking about the future. So that's what I make. So I connected to markets worldwide, and here we are on your show.
Exactly, exactly. And I love talking about the future, and here's why I have the show, because I
Right.
feel this is something that's really essential for people to understand.
Sure.
A lot of people live for that here and now, not understand. Even if they plan out maybe a year or two ahead, but they're not really looking at this picture, looking at 15, 20, 25, 30 years ahead,
Right.
because the truth of the matter is that things are changing so quickly.
Right.
That you may think you're preparing for 25 years, and that may happen in 5 years.
Well, consider the following. A baby born while we're talking will probably see the year 2100.
Wow.
Life expectancy worldwide, not just US, worldwide is over 70 years old now.
Right.
And medical science is not going to slow down. Longevity research is just beginning. Health conditions and urban conditions are going to be getting better. So it's reasonable that people's life expectancy will be longer than 70. Well, that puts it over the year 2100.
Exactly. Okay, fantastic. Well, I want to thank you, Jerome. I know this, thank you for giving me your time. This is really important. I love your information. I would love for you to come back to the show and be able to share more of the stuff that you're doing. So thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. And until then, we will see you, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a happy future.
Okay. All right, guys. So this ends this segment with Dr. Jerome Glenn. We thank him for being here, and we look forward to next week where we'll have another futurist here to share their information and to help you be able to understand the future a little bit more each week. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Foresight Strategy Show. You can hear host Dr. Nilda, co-host Rachel with featured guests every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live or anytime on demand. Visit www.drnildaperez.com/show. For more information, sign up to our Foresight Strategies Insider newsletter, a $10 value for free at www.drnildaperez.com/newsletter.